Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning. Sorry, I rearranged my desk and I'm still like rearranging things, sorting it out. All right. Oh, and where's our music? Okay, we got a retail sales today number that could really rile the market up. I really think this thing is like on a coiled spring, ready to go one way or the other. Problem is, I suspect that this retail sales number is going to be bad and the market is like all positioned short. So if it's not bad, this thing's just going to take off. And if it is bad, well, I'm not exactly sure how this plays out, because I don't think I've ever seen a situation where the market positioning was so negative already, right? So maybe we get a downside that's like very brief. We'll see. Also, we get bank earnings. I think we already have some of that out, right? So we'll try and take a look at that. Let's go through the charts really quickly here. So you can see the treasury is moving down a little bit more. I'm a little frustrated yesterday. Yesterday I had an okay trade. Made some okay money off of it. I waited. I didn't wait until the auction, but on the auction it did go a little bit lower. So, oh, sorry, I didn't even have the charts up here. Did go lower, so a little frustrating over there. S&P 500 rallying really hard and quite surprising yesterday. So again, like, there are a lot of shorts out there, and you're going to see like really impressive short squeezes, right? Oil moderating a little bit. Gold and silver still just like on the edge. So I know that seems like really high. That is like all right, just below all-time highs. So like gold is still on the edge of like it could break out in a serious way. We'll see. Okay, but that's what a lot of market watchers are watching. Okay, copper looking really good this morning, getting a big spike there. And the dollar continues to be weak, which is probably also good for Bitcoin, right? Yeah. Not terrible for Bitcoin, at least. All right, so that's what we got on the charts. Again, for the news here that will be coming out in about 3 minutes, the retail sales number month over month reading is -0.4. The Goldman analyst estimate is -1.3. Okay, so there is reason. I believe there's a strong reason to believe that the retail sales number will be up below expectations. But again, the market is positioned short. So if it doesn't go that way, the S&P is probably going to take off, I think. Okay, well, let's come over and see if we got JP Morgan earnings here. Okay. JP Morgan soars after beating across the board, raising outlook. Managed revenue 39.34 versus estimates of 36.84. Fixed sales and trading 5.7 versus the estimate of 5.25. Equity sales and trading revenue 2.68, missing the estimate. Investment banking revenue 1.56 versus 1.54 estimates, so they were pretty close to on for that one. Advisory revenue 756, beating the estimate 655 by quite a bit. Equity underwriting 235 versus estimate 263. Debt underwriting 663, beating the estimate 660. Corporate investment bank fees 1.65 billion, beating the estimate. Okay, so it's pretty good. That could be a real boon to markets. So again, they're really short, right? And they're particularly short banks. So yeah, that could move them. Well, if the retail sales was bad, I would expect to see the treasuries bid in a meaningful way. And they are kind of moving up here ahead of the move in the low liquidity. I'm trying to pull up a chart of JP Morgan here. Yeah, so they're moved from 129 to 136. That's a pretty good looking move there, man. I have to come back to 30 minutes. Like, that wipes out like weeks worth of downside, doesn't it? Wowzer. All right, here we go. 3.45, huh? Okay, it is worse than expected, but it's only core retail sales negative 0.8 versus expected negative 0.4. You see that? Very, very interesting. Was the positioning in the treasuries long so extreme that when it actually came out to be only just mildly below the expectation, they still had to dump their position? Because that is a really strong move down on the treasuries when you would expect that a weak retail sales would be a buy. There could be something in these numbers that I'm missing. That's very interesting. I'm not quite sure what to do off of that. It was like the news came out, the initial reaction was like to the upside in the treasuries, but it was like very tepid. And then just this massive wave of selling swept through the book. I don't know. Okay, live. Carl Quinteller says accelerating DE inflation in import prices. So U.S. import prices month over month was expected to be negative 0.1, and it was negative 0.6. I don't know, man. This that is very. I mean, I'm not gonna say that it doesn't make sense. I think it does make sense. I don't feel like I completely understand what's going on, but I think that this is all like within the realm of possibilities and everything. But I think it's a very surprising result to me. So I made the decision yesterday. I have like a music production keyboard on one side and a DJ table on one side. And I always had the DJ table over on the side where the monitor was higher and stuff like that. And what I realized was that the DJ table is like bigger. And so what I should do is I should put the bigger DJ table on the side where the monitor is lower, because I don't use it as often, and you know, so any of the extra space is like wasted. So I'd rather put the keyboard over on this side and get the extra space over where I can use it. So I did that, but the one disadvantage to that is that the volume from my speakers ends up being underneath of the screen, and I have to come all the way over here to touch it. This has got to be. I could be wrong here, guys, but my best guess is that somebody was really betting on this number being a lot worse than it was, and that they were kind of holding out on the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates 25 basis points in May. They were holding out for the retail sales. That is like the last really major data point before we get the FOMC, because the FOMC is like the first week of May, right? So that's the best explanation. But the issue that I have is that I was so, well, I wouldn't say confident, but I was so concerned about the possibility of the retail sales being really bad that most all of my scenarios were really based on that. My scenario, if it was good, and let's say it wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as some market participants thought. My scenario for if it was good was go along the S&P 500. Well, you can see the S&P 500 is kind of being like a little wonky, right? So, do I want to take the trade in the treasuries here now? I'm not so sure. I find that really difficult to sort. I'm concerned that, well, no, I take that back, because the flow recently has been spike up and then they sell it, right? Spike up and they sell it. So I think that, you know, if we're going to the downside, maybe they extend, you know, because the flows have been overall kind of negative this week anyways. But the thing that's making me hesitant is the idea that it will revert for the rest of the session. We're gonna get all the way up to 16, huh? Now, with my setup, the other thing that I did was I moved my audio interface over to here. And the problem with that is that the cord for the microphone, for the headphone, is on this side. And the box is over here. And so I'm like, my arm is constantly crossing the cable. So I think I'm gonna have to fix that. The cable is long enough that I can like bring it down and wrap it around and have it come back up over here, but still, it's kind of annoying. Need to buy a membership to some news website? Well, I have an affiliate link for Financial Juice down in the video description. And I tell you what, if you're gonna invest some money into your trading, there is no better investment, in my opinion, than a good news squawk. It's not the end all be all. It doesn't guarantee a success or anything, but I think it's the best investment of your money. I'd rather see you spend $100 a month on news than go and buy these $1,000 trading courses or some of these other software out there that's super expensive and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so I'm getting some hints that they might focus around 115 even and do a little dance. Yep, I'm gonna switch this. It's bothering me. Hold on. There, that's a little bit better. So one of the advantages of this setup is that you know, I have a place on the desk to put my little tablet, so I can come in and do this. Yay! Let's see if I can do better than that. Let's draw nice little circles. They're not boobs, they're circles, okay. I need some practice. Needs some practice. It's better than my, well, it's maybe not better than my mouse. So, wow, they're coming down there awfully quickly. So yeah, it's good. It's easy for me to move. So next time I need to draw a picture. It's not perfect, but once we get the new desk, we'll have a little bit more room, and then I can probably fit everything. It'll be perfect. Is the price really $99 a month? Yes, I believe it is $99 a month right now. It used to be $70. I think it's $99 now. Also, they did have a deal where for like $1,000, you could get a lifetime subscription, but I don't think that's available right now. I have the lifetime subscription. So Feds Waller is speaking at the moment. This is very curious. Okay, so they seem to be all of a sudden very sensitive to what Feds Waller is saying, even though not sure he said anything too important. After the SVB failure, measures to increase liquidity appear to have been successful in stabilizing the financial sector. Goolsby, there's undoubtedly a chance of a small recession. We need to keep an eye on price series rather than wages. Inflation is decreasing, says Goolsby. And Fed swaps upgrade May hike rate odds to nearly 90%. I'm a little surprised with the aggressiveness of this latest little move down too. My plan was sit and wait for a little bit and then see if they go for another leg down, and it just like immediately went down. Okay, Nick Timmeros highlighting Chris Waller here in his speech. Chris Waller is not ready to talk about a pause in interest rate increases. So let's see what he was saying. Whether you measure inflation using the CPI or the Fed's preferred measure of personal consumption expenditures, it is still much too high, and so my job is not done. I interpret these data as indicating that we haven't made much progress on our inflation goal, which leaves me about the same place on the economic outlook as that I was at the last FOMC meeting, and on the same path for monetary policy. Because financial conditions have not significantly tightened, the labor market continues to be strong and quite tight, and inflation is far above target, so monetary policy needs to be tightened further. How much further will depend on incoming data on inflation, the real economy, and the extent of tightening credit conditions. Another implication from my outlook and the slow progress lately is that as of now, monetary policy will need to remain tight for a substantial period of time and longer than markets anticipate. But there are still more than 2 weeks until the next FOMC meeting, and I stand ready to adjust my stance based on what we learn about the economy, including about lending conditions. I would welcome signs of moderating demand, but they appear, and I see inflation moving meaningfully and persistently down towards our 2% target. I believe there's still work to do. Yep, and now Wall Street Journal is saying a Federal Reserve official says there was prepared to approve another interest rate increase because recent banking system stresses haven't produced a significant pullback in lending while high inflation remains supported by strong growth. Okay. So it sure seems to me like over the last few weeks, we've been expecting bad data, and the data was pretty bad. But it wasn't quite as bad as feared, and it didn't have as much of an impact on the market as feared. And it seems like we're back into this, like, yes, the economy is weakening or growth is slowing because of higher interest rates, but that it's on a pretty smooth trajectory, right? And so those that were really concerned about like imminent recession because of like the SVB bank failure or all of that sort of stuff, I think are getting disappointed. Because it's kind of what it seems to me. Well, seems like they're trying to retest the scene of the crime when they kind of move down a little bit further off of Fed's Waller. I don't like that much movement. I was kind of like thinking, well, maybe here is an okay place to try along. Seems a little too volatile there. Happy Friday. Can you believe it's Friday? This is pretty wild action in the Treasury. You know, there was not something that really... It was not something that really crossed my mind, but the action here in the Treasuries is probably a lot more disorganized than it usually is because it's Friday, huh? Man, I don't know. So I know that there were like Fed speakers kind of like around the time, but wasn't it? Let me come back here. Fed's Goolsbee started speaking at 6:30, and Waller started speaking at 6:45. Waller was at 6:45. I didn't see anything from Goolsbee that seemed like overtly hawkish. So I'm just trying to sort out if there was something else in the news that prompted the move that we saw. And I'm not seeing very good evidence for that. Time goes so fast, it's scary. Yeah. I've been in a daze this past week, man, because I'm pretty okay in the morning, but my body is just not absorbing the nutrients, man. It's just not absorbing the nutrients right now. And so by the time it's like dinner time, I am just spent. I just feel like I'm awake, but I'm just like bored. Can't gain any motivation to do anything meaningful. It's rough. I really, really hope I can get this sorted out so that next week I can be more myself. No, I thought that I was going to put the gravel in my garden this weekend. I'm not so sure that's happening anymore. One, because I don't think I have the energy. And two, I have to buy a new dishwasher. So I think that the money that I was going to use on gravel ends up going to a dishwasher. According to sources with direct knowledge, a growing number of European central bank policymakers are calling for the bank to stop reinvesting cash in its largest bond buying scheme in order to help trim its balance sheet as part of efforts to combat inflation. Now, that is a strange headline for me to see at this time. You broke into a fever for 5 minutes. Oh, that is weird. And then all of a sudden it went away. That's a little scary sounding. It seems to me like the market is suggesting that we can support interest rates above 3.5 again. But it looks like they've run out of sellers for now. I think I just keep getting COVID over and over again and my body kills it. That could be. So I tell you what, on the COVID thing, man, it was a nasty virus. The longer we get into this, the more plausible it sounds to me that it was a man-made virus developed in China that somehow escaped, and that the Chinese government was as aggressive as they were because they knew things about the long-term impacts of it. That doesn't mean that all of the fear that people were kind of putting around it at that time was justified. But it seems to me that like long COVID is definitely a thing. Shouldn't say it seems to me. Long COVID is absolutely a thing. But you know what I've from the things that I've heard about this, the solution to these problems is healthy habits. So who was it? It was like the I forget his name. Is this Indian psychiatrist guy that does psychology targeted towards like young gamers and stuff like that? You know who I'm talking about? He has a Twitch where he regularly talks about this stuff. And he was talking about brain fog. He had a video about brain fog. And he was basically saying that it seems that one of the effects of long COVID, or even if you don't have like straight up long COVID, but you had COVID and it's having longer term impacts on you, is brain fog. And he talked about the things that kind of cause it and stuff like that. And it was like, you got to exercise, you got to eat lots of fruits and vegetables so that you got the flavonoids or whatever, and all of these sorts of things. And I definitely had found that when I was able to get back into working out and bringing my endurance back up really well, that I had a lot less problems with that stuff. Now I've been like the last 2 weeks I haven't worked out, and I'm not happy. I want to go work out. Why do you think the NASDAQ is underperforming the NQ the last 2 weeks? I don't know. Is it really that? I mean, it's really hard for the index and the futures to get that far out of whack. Futures Trader 71 tweets, I guess Twitter doesn't allow broadcasting anymore, so there will not be a stream sent over Twitter media. It would be nice if there was a notice sent to producers of content. Oh, sorry, I meant the NASDAQ and the Dow. So the NASDAQ is underperforming the Dow. Well, I think that that's probably due to the outperformance of the NQ in the period just before that, right? when we had the SVB bank failure, the play ended up being going long techs, right? And since then they've kind of like slowly been taking profits in it. I think that was a real surprise to me as well. Because if like SVB is like gonna create a recession sort of a thing, typically what I would expect is like you do want to be in techs, just not at that moment. You want to wait for the market to like really panic and go down, and then you should be able to buy techs cheap, right? But instead they moved into it as a flight to safety, which kind of was a little like okay. But you know what, man? I'm starting to think that the hedge funds and all of this sort of stuff are relying a little bit too much on their algorithms and stuff and not thinking things through. Because the negative sentiment that we have right now and the very aggressive short positions in equities in particular, I do not think make very much sense. How can the market move down if everybody's hedged themselves? You know? Like, it seems to me like there's a very good chance that there's going to be a recession in the third, fourth quarter of the year. But that's not what the market is doing right now, but everybody's short. That's just not gonna work. Well, I'm still getting headlines from Waller. Kind of keeping an eye on that 3.5 down there. Oh boy. There's a subject that we have to talk about today, and you might be able to guess what it is, and I'm kind of like putting it off until later. And then I see stuff on Twitter related to it, and I'm like, oh, we gotta talk about that. No, I don't think we're done talking about the other stuff. Let's get the other more important stuff out of the way first before we talk about that. Let's see here. Oh, the dollar moved up off of that move. I don't know. It still seems to me, that what happened here was that retail sales cemented that there would be a 25 basis point hike in May, and that's been the primary driver of the flows here in the treasuries. There must have been a few holdout players out there in the market that still thought they were still making a bet that they would hold, and it seems like those guys have thrown in the towel today. There's a possibility that there was a piece of data hidden in all of there that was what they were reacting to, or that they were reacting to the Fed speakers and stuff. But I don't think that was really it. And the way that it behaved afterwards was a little unusual, right? Because the treasuries didn't really move very much. When the number came out, they were kind of just held and were like, okay, which way are we going to go? Up. And I saw a little bit of flow long, and then just boosh, they sold it, right? That's very unusual on news. You did not see that very often, where it's like they're not sure what it is, and then one guy just comes in and smashes it one way that doesn't really make immediate sense necessarily. You know what else could be at play is that, again, JP Morgan is looking really good this morning, having beaten estimates. In fact, it looks like they've extended a little bit higher than when we started. So you combine that you find out that the big banks are doing pretty okay too, right? That all just further reinforces that we're probably going to get another 25 basis point hike. Well, let's come to Zero Hedge, refresh here, and see what the what they say about retail sales. Yesterday, when previewing today's closely watched retail sales prints, we shared the latest card tracking data from Bank of America, which predicted a much sharper than expected drop, expecting a 0.8% drop in the headline and a negative 1% drop in the X auto numbers. And as usual, Bank of America was right, even if the numbers were flipped, with their headline and retail sales X auto coming in as the bank predicted and roughly twice as bad as the consensus had expected, even though the core retail sales and control group beat modestly despite also printing red. What is concerning is that retail sales rose just 2.9% year over year. This was the lowest annual rise in retail sales since June of 2020. Looking at the components, the biggest drop by far was gasoline stations, which is the result of the drop in gas prices in March, which have, however, since rebounded strongly. Additionally, we saw a big drop in motor vehicle stores, furniture, clothing, food, beverage, general merchandise, and of particular note, electronics and appliance stores, which have had a very rough time since the pandemic. Also notice the negative 10.3% drop in nominal retail sales for the category when adjusted for inflation. This means that retail sales for electronics are plunging more than 15% in real times. I don't know about if that one is so concerning because, okay, so now I'm getting clicky when we get 3.5, but that's over in the S&P 500. The technology hasn't moved as much because, you know, people aren't putting out new products. They're not making new games and all that sort of thing. Bottom line, the lag from monetary policy coupled with the hit to spending following the bank crisis is starting to catch up. Yes, it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as some were predicting still. Goldman thought it was going to be negative 1.3. So you would, you know, 3.5 would maybe be a spot that I would be interested in, but you're getting a pretty consistent uptrend here. Kind of looking around, looking for more information. It does appear to be moderating here now that we've gotten to 3.5. So I'll just center things there. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, people need to be prepared for higher rates for longer. The market has been reacting to things that Jamie Dimon says as of late, and I think that there must be doing the conference call right now is my guess where that's coming from. So, you know, we could see more flows here, right? I don't know. Days like today are always make me a little suspicious because doesn't it just feel like we just got like a flood of new information all at once? Some of it expected, some of it very much not expected, though. And the treasury market is just riled, and now all of a sudden looks completely different to me. A little bit of a move higher there again. Another thing I should note is, as of late, we've gotten these situations where the ZB will kind of get stuck in a range. And it's like very, very tight compared to the other ones. And then once the 30-year decides to move, then we do something. So Carl Cantuila quoting Jamie Dimon, "We are hoping that everyone just takes a deep breath. There may be some limitations on held to maturity, but it doesn't have to be a revamp of the whole bank regulation system, just recalibrating things the right way." Mind the gap, somebody posting on Twitter. Well, so it doesn't appear that the JP Morgan earnings have led to a appreciable move in the S&P 500 index, but there might be selling off of the open in JP Morgan. Let's see. That's surely the trade that I would be expecting the retail traders to make, right? Fade the gap. At least on that one. We get another news block here. Hold on. Oh yes, industrial production, manufacturing output. Okay. Not big numbers. Not big numbers, but still news, yes. I think these are like low tier ones, right? Industrial production being the most significant. Well, seems there is a little bit of steepening going on here after the flattener from just after the news. Okay, I see the liquidity adjusting itself here a little bit in front of the news. Or let's say the economic data. Hey, industrial production better than expected 0.4 versus an expected 0.2. Well, market is reacting to that. They seem awfully touchy today, don't they? Yeah, my news squawk just said muted reaction to it in the markets, and I'm kind of sitting here thinking like, well, that's actually stronger of a reaction than I would have expected. Does seem to be reverting back. So, 115 should be a level that you could rotate around for a long time, right? So now we wait until University of Michigan, right? Do you think that the liquidity here on the inside will recover a bit today? Because it is, you know, yesterday it seemed really good, and today it is not. It seems that the decline in the treasuries has damaged the liquidity a little bit, no? Oh, that was a little bit of a breakout there for the 5-year. See if what it does from there. I'll just reset that so it's at the top of the range. Doesn't so I'm not really seeing volume behind this or anything. So it kind of looks like it's just squeezing all of the guys that just went short off of that economic news. Only gold and Forex are moving a lot. Yeah, so gold took a hit, didn't it? Gold took a hit, Japanese yen took a hit. The dollar rose. Yeah, the move in the dollar is relatively significant, 30 cents. I'd say it's in line with the moves that we've had in the recent past, but it's definitely the case, though. I would definitely agree with you that gold and Forex seem to be moving more than some of the other things, like the S&P 500. quite muted on that one. You know, normally retail sales affects stocks more, right? And kind of feels like the stock market is yawning about it. I guess that's the thing that I find weird about today's action. It's not that the Treasury sold on that news, even though it is kind of contra to what you would expect from the fundamentals, but you know, based on positioning and everything else, I think it, you know, we could say that it's in line with what the range of possibilities. But the S&P 500, the Treasury's moving and the S&P 500 yawning about it. That's a little unusual. Maybe it's because anybody that would come out and like buy or sell the S&P 500 off of that already has a position. So it seems like we're still in this position where like the most likely scenario is a slow melt up in short covering, right? Wednesday price moved a lot, but retraced later in the afternoon. Well, remember, it's Friday, right? So, Michigan sentiment tends to be a pretty significant mover. So, yeah, that last little move pushed ZB outside of the range. Bloomberg, Supreme Court Justice Thomas's acceptance of luxury trips and other gifts have caused an uproar, but Washington's partisan divisions will preclude ethics reforms from Congress. Yeah, probably. It seems to me that the left, since Joe Biden has been in office, has adopted an intentional strategy of targeting specific conservative. You know, they've done it with the Fed, and they're doing it with Supreme Court justices in an effort to convince them to retire so that the president can install more of their people in there. And they're trying to do it with Justice Thomas. And I find this to be a disappointing development because, again, what this sort of thing does, should I say again, it's not something that we've talked about a lot, but it is something that I've talked about before. And Thomas Sowell talks about this a lot. Is that it kind of has a chilling effect on anybody that's a good person that ever wants to do any kind of public service, because they just go, well, I don't want to have my life up to constant scrutiny about that sort of thing. Even if, you know, you think that there are things that are totally okay, times could change or people could just come after you anyways, right? And so it kind of prevents the smart people from running. But on the other hand of it, if the Democrats are going to do that, I kind of feel like you have to fight fire with fire. So it should be expected, I think, that if you get a Republican in office again, that they'll try doing the same thing to some of the liberal justices and so forth. And it's just not, I just don't think it's a good thing for the country. Just ignore it? Well, for it seems like for Justice Thomas that he's just ignoring it and that they are just going to ignore it. But I felt that when the ones happened for the Federal Reserve members, I felt that they resigned too quickly. I was kind of like, well, I mean, your rules are the rules and you followed them and let people think what they want to think. But I think that those two guys were just kind of like, well, I don't need to put up with this. I'm doing pretty good right now. I'll just retire then. Retire before the market goes to shit. And yeah. Okay, that little bit of a slip was more heat than I really wanted to go through on this position. Because just moments ago I was thinking, well, I can still scratch it at -5 and be okay, and now all of a sudden it's -15. So I continue to kind of be in this situation where it seems like I'm kind of against the trend for some whichever way I do it. I end up against the trend, and have very, very hard time getting favorable excursions. Almost as though the market was specifically fighting me in particular. And the issue is that probably the prudent position here is to be short the treasuries and long interest rates. But how far up is it going to go before they start heading back down? There's a destroy Seth algo. The market right now is quiet enough. I think that it would take a big person, but I mean, it's a possibility. It's I don't think that that's what's actively happening, but I would just say that, you know, if like somebody at JP Morgan decided that they really hated me, they could be doing like, they could do a destroy Seth algo and kind of pull this off a little bit, but that's probably not what it is. I think it more of what it is that there's just like really high volatility right now, right? Nah, I doubt Zero Hedge even knows who I am. Or they wouldn't have blocked me. So at the time that Zero Hedge blocked me, they were complaining that they were being pushed by anti-crypto bots. They were saying it was all bots. So I think that they blocked me as like, you were one of the bots. Oh, whatever. Did you just say high volatility to come back? Yeah. So we're only talking about 15 ticks here, but yeah, the market seems to be really sensitive right now. So here in a pretty quiet range, it can move 15 ticks against you is kind of what's going on. But basically, yes, we had the downside move and then a recovery. And then after that little bit of a pullback recovery, then about 15 minutes passed. And then we got the comments from Fed's Waller, I think it was. And that led to a further decline. And since that time, we've had a slow and steady churn up. There are at times, like just right there, there are at times it slips down a little bit, but overall I would say it's been a pretty steady bubble up. And so when I'm looking at it, especially on cumulative delta, it kind of looks like it's just flat, and that this is just kind of like post meta order mean reversion and kind of, you know, evening out. But what frustrates me is that normally that's only like 4 ticks, and today it's more like 8. I don't have a clue what the market is going to do today. Maybe consumer sentiment at 10 will break us one way or another. I think consumer sentiment could move the market. I think that this result in the treasuries is very weird. So again. Well, I didn't see either Brett or Lucas talking earlier, so I'm assuming that you just kind of popped in. But just to recap for you guys, what we saw happen when the news was released, at first the treasuries were kind of like, okay, I think we buy, and there was a little bit of buying in that low liquidity condition for like a few seconds, And then all of a sudden, whoosh, this huge sell came into the market. Now, a sell off of the economic news is not what you would normally expect, because the retail sales number was bad, and it was worse. It was twice as bad as expected, or at least the consensus expectation. So normally that would be a, that's the economy's not as strong, inflation shouldn't be as big of an issue, and you can buy treasuries, right? But instead the treasuries sold very, very hard, right? And then the follow-up of that was a Federal Reserve speaker saying, we don't think that our job is done. We think there's going to be another rate increase. So I think what happened, this is just my best theory right now, is that there were some people that were expecting the retail sales to be even worse than it was. And there were some people trying to make the bet that the Federal Reserve will not actually raise interest rates in May. And it appears that this number has cemented that the Federal Reserve will go forward with their plans and raise interest rates in May. And I think that that's what's leading to the flows that we've had. We had selling across the board, yeah, because that just seems to be in line with all of the different correlations that we've had, right? Because the whole complex moved lower, the dollar moved higher a little bit. I think that's all in line with the Federal Reserve is going to stay the course, right? And when you put some of the other context around it, like JP Morgan earnings were good, for instance, the bank earnings were good. I think that's the most reasonable explanation. So, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, Brett, where it's kind of like, what is the market going to do? Because it all seems a little odd, right? And the thing that's most particularly odd is that while there has been some volatility in the S&P 500, it's only been about 10 points, and it's very, very quiet for a retail sales number. Usually the retail sales number affects the equities more than it does the treasuries. Now that said, the S&P 500 is opening up here. It looks like there's maybe a little bit, a slight rise in price here, but the net market orders so far have been short. This is very, very early on and it's very tepid, but that's what we're at the moment. So James thinks we're headed south. I don't know. I tell you what, this is a really good example situation of where what we think the fundamentals are not necessarily the things that's going to move the markets, right? Because yes, people do place trades based on changing expectation of future fundamentals and flows, but ultimately it's the orders that move the market, and there are a lot of other reasons that orders come through, right? And the biggest thing that I see that could potentially affect future orders in the S&P 500 is the fact that we have like record shorts in the equity index futures and so forth. So, I think that makes it very hard to continue selling in the S&P 500. How would you prefer to receive ChatGPT trading model alerts? I would not take trades based on what ChatGPT says. If you had a completely proprietary data set and you were incorporating some other information into it, then that would maybe be a different thing. But if it was just a large language model, I would not trade off of that. Do banks have mid-month seasonality stuff they do? Is there like, well, so, I mean, there's balancing all the time, but like the end of month and end of quarter is when the majority of that flow happens. Or I shouldn't say the majority of that flow. That's one period where we know that there's an unusual amount of flow related to that, right? So like, as an example, BlackRock. Have you ever heard people talk about Aladdin? There's so much FUD out there about Aladdin. This algorithm controls the market. Did you know that they own $10 trillion worth of... Well, what does Aladdin do? Aladdin looks at much money in contributions they got, how much money in distributions they have, and how much the individual stocks that they own are moving, and what kind of rebalancing that they might have to do in order to reduce the number of transactions that it takes. Because if, for instance, you get some people come in and they're taking money out of the funds, and so you go, oh, okay, so to do that, I have to sell all of these different companies, right? Sell an equal amount of everything to get that money to give to them. And then you do that, and then immediately after that, you get contributions that was even more than that, right? Then all of that selling was pointless because you didn't actually have to do the selling. You could just take the money that you got and give it to the other person and then put the remainder back in the market, right? So Aladdin figures all these things out and reduces the number of transactions that they have to take, right? And it can even go further where they can say, well, okay, there are some distributions and we do have to sell some stocks, but we should sell stocks in this stock that did really well this week because we would have to sell that one for the distribution anyways. And so it will be easier for us to balance our portfolio by selling this outperformer instead of doing, those are this. And how do you like sort out with all of those complexities of what's going on with every stock and everything? That they use Aladdin. That's what Aladdin does, right? But mid-month, I've never seen anything too specific. But the thing that is going on today that is relevant to this is that we are at the beginning of bank earnings season. And JP Morgan went first, and their earnings were pretty good. Okay. Answered, you don't. Yeah. Right now, it is... The other flow that we've been having this week is supply, right? There's been some treasury auctions. I think today, I haven't looked. I don't think that they have one today because we had the 30-year yesterday, right? Yeah, no, we don't have any of that today. No, this is like the last week of like heavy data though, right? Once you get into next week, let's see, what is next week's data? There's a lot of absorption on the ES. Yeah. So there was like the first bar was mostly sell and the second bar has been mostly buy in terms of volume. And it looks like that they're breaking out. We'll see if they actually make it, but they are making an attempt. Okay, so next week, Empire State Manufacturing, building permits, existing home sales. Oh, we get a flash manufacturing PMI on Friday. But it's much lower tier data next week, right? Do earnings cause movement in treasuries? They can, yes, actually. Well, bank earnings in particular can have, I wouldn't say it's a super strong impact, but it is a little bit of the flavor. Yeah. Because you can learn things about how the financial system is doing by looking at the bank earnings, right? So in this particular case with JP Morgan beat on almost every subline, like every line of business except for like one outperformed what the market expectation was. So that suggests that JP Morgan was not impacted in the least bit by this banking crisis, by the SVB thing, right? So that really strongly suggests that if the primary concern is still inflation, that the Federal Reserve does very much have to stay the course, because the big banks, the place where the majority of the money is coming from, are doing fine. To be honest, I didn't buy the banking crisis either. At the time I did kind of feel like, I don't know if I said this strongly, but I did kind of feel like maybe the market was overreacting, because I'd definitely taken some trades on that, like blowing over, and then it kind of flared up again a little bit before it eventually cooled down. So I was a little too early to the trade. You're getting some movement here in the treasury. It hasn't broken out of the range, but there's it is more volatile than usual for sure. Like the range is wider than it usually is. It does look like though that here in the last 5 minutes or so that the flattener has started to take control again. And a flattener would suggest downside. NNT, who is that? Nassim Taleb? I haven't seen a whole lot from him this week. So here's a can I segue into like a different topic here that's kind of related? I don't want to seem too ADHD, but as of late, I've been thinking a lot about there are some people that seem to be chronically online. I mean, like if anybody is chronically online, it's me. Like I spend way too much time online. But there are some people that it really seems to me that their opinions are very strongly influenced by what they read online. That there are people that like I'll never see them express an opinion in this way at all. They never say anything about the subject. It's not something that they're thinking about. And then all of a sudden the conversation comes up on Reddit or the conversation comes up on patriots.win, and then all of a sudden they have a strong opinion about it. And they're tweeting like madmen about it, you know? And Nassim Taleb seems to me to be one of those people that is like chronically online, like that he tweets too much, and that a lot of what he's saying and thinking about is being very heavily influenced by what he's seeing online. Because I constantly see him getting like acting super triggered about things that like I don't think anybody really cares about, and it's like he must only be saying that because he read it from somebody on Twitter and he didn't like what somebody on Twitter said, you know? Sometimes if the economic YouTubers want to talk about crisis because it gets more views, 100%. Nassim Taleb is too fragile to his own ego and had a lot of books. Yeah. I mean, he's really smart, and I think that he has a he made a very valuable contribution to the world with those books. He really did. He is hitting on something that is at the heart of a lot of the problems in our society, and I think that everybody picked up on the Black Swan, but there's a lot of other ideas in his books that I think are very, very important, because I continually see people making decisions based on faulty statistics, right? Where it's something that's fat-tailed, and they're trying to say, oh, I had 50 instances of this, and so I know that it works, and you need way, way more than that, right? Especially in trading. So it was valuable, but like in the beginning, because there was some situations, I forget what the issue was, but there was some issues where Taleb was like very strongly against something that Democrats was saying. This was a very, very long time ago. And so there was some people out there that maybe thought that he was a right winger, but he is not at all. He is so left wing. And I don't mean like left wing like a socialist sort of a thing, but just like culturally and stuff, you know, he whatever the left is triggered online about, he's triggered about, and he will come in really, really hard on a particular issue and be like, I'm the smartest person, I know everything about everything, I know. And when there are things that like are like way outside of his area of expertise, sometimes I think everybody does that, but that's just like the human tendency. But statistics and probabilities are hard to grasp, even for people who are supposed to be not. Well, yes, because our brains do not deal with fat-tailed distributions at all, right? The thing that I've been doing like a lot of stuff about machine learning and artificial intelligence and that sort of a stuff. And the biggest shift in thinking that I've had about this has less to do with what sort of algorithms I can make and so forth to try and understand the market better, and more about how what we know about computer neural networks tell us about relate to what we know about the brain in general, right? The brain is a neural network, right? When you do a neural network, you have to train the neural network. You set up a bunch of nodes, and then you send it data, and it uses that data and like a reinforcement to adjust the weightings on all of those nodes. That's what nerve cells do. So the nerve cells have these weightings to determine if the message gets through or not and stuff. You have to train a neural network. You have to train the brain. And apparently with the brain, like if you think about it with a neural network, it's like in order for the neural network to really be correct, you want to do it in like stages. You want to say, okay, so here's a certain set of data, and then here's a certain set of data, and teach it certain things so that it's able to come to certain key conclusions that are really valuable, I guess you could say, right? That's what the human brain does. That's why there's like stages of development, right? At first, you're just getting moving and stuff, for instance. The brain is very, very good at noticing a tendency in a Gaussian distribution, right? But it does not understand fat-tailed distributions at all. At all. And, by the way, artificial intelligence like ChatGPT has the same problem. Why is it that ZN moves on numbers more than FOMC meetings when ES moves more on meetings and not on second-graded significance news numbers? Well, so you're making an assertion that is not necessarily true, right? That's only what has moved the most in the recent past, and that's not necessarily what moves the most if you look at the entirety of all data that exists, right? It seems like at the moment, though, that the treasury market is just a lot more sensitive than other things. Because, I guess because of the uncertainty over if they would actually stop in May or not. And all of the other, the banking crisis and all that. Anyways, so the reason why I've been thinking about like the chronically online thing though is because yesterday, oh my gosh, so this is where you get the thing that I don't really want to talk about, but yesterday there's been leaks from US intelligence about key things relating to Ukraine that it seems harmed US interests from it leaking. And everybody was like trying to figure out what it was. Is it Russians, this and that and the other? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, actually it's just some 20-year-old kid that was bragging to his friends, putting this information out. So yesterday they arrested him. It's really kind of like, it's a huge data breach, and it was just for this 20-year-old guy to impress his younger friends. It's kind of weird. Like, how did he get access to that kind of data and stuff like that? There's some real questions about, because a lot of stuff gets marked classified that shouldn't be, and then as a result, there's a lot of people that have access to classified information that they really shouldn't. It's just a whole mess. I hope that this is like a big like wake up call for the intelligence apparatus in the United States, that they really need to fix that, right? Yeah. On Discord, no less, right? It's just like the whole thing is just a little zany, right? Well, So that right there, what I just gave you is like Seth's presentation of the issue. I haven't been following it that closely until last night, but that's my impression of it. Okay, I feel like, hey, you know, if there's like secret information that like you're whistleblowing and that the public should know and stuff like that, then I'm all about like, let's get it out there. But like, there's proper channels and ways to do it first, right? You go through the proper channels to try and get that information out, and then if they fight against it there, then maybe you release it to the public. And I really don't like the Edward Snowden thing, where it's like, okay, so now I'm just gonna go and live in Russia for the rest of my life. I wouldn't do that. If I was Edward Snowden, first of all, I wouldn't have put this stuff out. Okay, and I'm not just saying that because maybe someday the NSA wants to hire me or something like that. I don't think that would ever happen, but I don't think that that's where I would go for a career. But I'm just saying, maybe it's a possibility, but not something I'm planning on. Not saying that. It's just I don't think it's right to, you know, who are you to say like that this is secret information or not, the public should know it or not, you know, like. And if I did do it, I would stay. I would go in jail. I would endure all of the, I'm sure that they treat you very, very terribly in jail. Like Assange has been treated very, very poorly, right? But I would go to the United States and I would stand trial. And if they find me guilty, then they find me guilty, and then I would look for the pardon. Right? I don't like what Edward Snowden did about this, right? So that's like kind of my feelings on this sort of a subject, right? Well, if you go to like patriots.win, all of the people are saying this guy is a hero. Like, what? Had classified operators manuals for particular weapon systems. Oh geez. Yeah, there is stuff that is classified that shouldn't be. What is a logical stop on a micro tenure? Any kind of stop that I might give you is likely to be put through, right? But it seems to me that if you have 20 ticks in a 30-minute period, that's about as far as they're going right now. Anyways, so MTG, Majoring Taylor Green, she tweeted yesterday that this guy was a hero. And I'm kind of like, how is it? She said, oh, he notified the American public of important things that they should know. Like what? I don't see it. They're saying, oh, well, we do have troops in Ukraine, which which frankly is ridiculous. Like, yes, we have people that are doing training or like certain kind of logistics and intelligence stuff. Those guys have always been there, and you could have just assumed that they were there. That's not a big revelation to the American public that's worthy of putting that out. And that's not why the kid did it. The kid did it to impress his friends, which is really frankly stupid, right? So why? I just can't imagine how are you saying this guy is a hero? But like, here's the thing. The Patriots.win has been pro-Russian this whole time, and like straight up, we know for a fact that there have been Russian agents trying to influence that section of the internet, and you could tell immediately that when they moved off of Reddit, where they weren't blocking those people, like there was a change in the content on the forum, and it was more pro-Russian. And it seems to me like there's a pro-Russian section of the Republican Party that has just like fallen hook, line, and sinker for Moscow's tricks. I heard he did it because they were arguing about the war. Okay, well. I haven't said anything that's not known outside of the news stories and stuff. Sorry, what is it that I'm saying that you're like, how do you know this stuff? Oh, are you talking about like the Russian disinformation and stuff like that? Well, this has been reported on quite extensively, right? We have pretty verified proof that the Russians were were trying to influence US elections and stuff like that. Yeah, so okay, so I give you kind of a couple of examples. First there was the, what was her name, Burina thing? Do you remember that thing where there was this Russian agent that had been doing influence peddling amongst Republicans and then got found out and deported? It's like this cute redhead girl ended up being an internet sensation for a little while when she was found out. So there was that one. And then if you go to like Reddit's blog, and you search for Russian, you'd probably find it. Reddit has spoken many times about foreign influence campaigns that they have found operating on their website. They've found this many times, and one instance in particular, it was Russians posting on the Donald, right? So that's the proven thing. And what I'm saying is that when the Donald got banned and they moved to patriots.win, these Russians, they were getting banned by Reddit itself, right? They were getting banned by Reddit themselves. Those accounts are not necessarily going to be banned by patriots.win. And so it is my opinion that there has been a shift in content since they moved to patriots.win that is more pro-Russian, right? There have been instances during this whole thing where the patriots.win posted like just the straight up Russian propaganda. Like the Russians put out this like manifesto sort of a thing, talking about why Ukraine was so awful and immoral and stuff like that. And it was kind of more of, it was like a very right-wing religious moral sort of attack on Ukraine, right? And the patriots.win just posted that as a thread, and there was a lot of it did well on that website. Like it got lots of upvotes. And I really don't think that the majority, like when you look at the polling and everything, the majority of Republicans do not feel that way. And I don't think that even the majority of like the far right Donald Trump base necessarily feels that way about those sorts of things either. So the only thing that I think makes sense in that situation is that there is a lot of influence, Russian influencing going on that website. And even if we don't take it that far though, that seems to me that during the period that we know that there was Russian influence going on, that it worked, and that some of those people have kind of never broken free of it. I'm open to information if Russia is in the right here, but just that there's no like, so the whole thing is the things that I don't know if I want to get into this particular argument again because it would be a distraction from the main point that we're talking about, but the things that Russia says to justify their war in Ukraine are just not adequate justifications for invading a country. They're just not. Yeah, hyperpartisanship has made it pretty simple for hostile nations to infiltrate anything politics or related to the Western internet, regardless of party. I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, because there's all this influence peddling, or I want to say influence peddling. I don't know why it's just rolling off the tongue. It's not influence peddling, but there are influencing campaigns by the Russians, okay, that we know about. There is just as much, if not like 5 times that much influence going on from China on the left, and nobody talks about it ever. Okay, like here you had a situation where a congressman was literally sleeping with a Chinese spy, for instance. Like, come on, man. Yeah, the Chinese do the exact same thing to the left. No question about it. And the sad part is how much money there is to be made doing it. I wonder how much... Okay, so, quick segue. Yesterday on TikTok, I watched a video about The Mandalorian, and I wanted to see what people were saying about it, even though I know that depending on which video I get, the comments are going to be very biased one way or another. But I just wanted to see what were the comments that were doing well. So I clicked on the comments and read it for a little while, and it goes, oh, he watches The Mandalorian, right? And then ever since then, it keeps trying to push Mandalorian stuff to me, even though most of those videos I scroll past. Because, like, look, I liked the first 2 seasons, but I didn't start at the very beginning with the 3rd season, and everything that I've heard about the 3rd season makes it sound like absolute trash to me. Like the main character gave up the Darksaber. What the heck? That's so stupid. It's so stupid, right? Why does TikTok keep sending me so much stuff about the Mandalorian? And then I'm watching these videos and it's like, hey guys, here's this theory that I have about the Mandalorian. The armorer must be a traitor. And then they have all of these perfectly captured clips from like several different episodes, and they're all super clean and everything in the background and everything else. Like, dude, the average internet user on TikTok does not know how to make videos like this. They would not know how to go and clip segments from multiple different episodes of the show on Disney Plus, no less. Right? Oh, by the way, here's... Whew. I got way too deep in there, guys. Hold on. Michigan sentiment 63.5. Inflation in line 5-year, 1 year 4.6 versus 3.7. Yeah, that's gonna hammer them for sure. Okay. It's just a TV show. Okay. If you would, you know how to go to 4 different episodes of The Mandalorian and pull a clip out to put it in a TikTok video. Okay, because I think I could figure it out, but it would probably take me like an hour to do it, right? And like the clips might not be very good because I wouldn't have recording stuff. All right. Disney is paying these guys. It's so obvious. Disney has these influencers and they say, oh yeah, we'll give you access and you get to know what's going on, and we want you to talk about this particular theory so that when it happens, everybody will be like, oh, that is what happened, you were right. And then it's this big thing on social media, right? And I'm convinced that Disney is paying TikTok to boost their show. 100%. They have to be. There's no way that they're not. Come on. Right? So if you can do that for a Disney TV show, okay, what other things is China boosting on TikTok? I'm just saying. Yep, it goes both ways, and it's because and Yuzi, you're totally right. It's the hyper-partisanship of the United States is what allows this nonsense to happen. Totally. So, with all that said, Majoring Taylor Green says, like, supports this guy, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, guys, because here's where it becomes important with all that context and everything. All right, here's where this becomes important. Okay, I would really like to see Joe Biden not be president anymore. I think that he's done a lot of damage to this country. I think he's done a lot of damage to this economy, and the policies that he's putting through are not good for the economy. And if we got somebody else in there, it would probably be a lot better for the economy, and it would have a dramatic impact on the stock market. And yet it seems to me like Republicans insist on doing stupid things that would ensure he gets reelected. Okay? Because the American public overwhelmingly supports the war in Ukraine. And now all of a sudden, the MTG is trying to get Republicans branded as the traitor party. Like, why? Makes no sense. Why would you take that position? The only thing that makes sense to me is that you've been properly misinformed by the Russians or something. It's just crazy to me. And I feel like Majoring Taylor Greene is one of those cases where it's like she's chronically online. It's like whatever her position ends up being, it always comes out after you see the super far right-wing crazies in comment sections, and they've given their opinion on something, and then she'll come out and she'll say it. I just doesn't feel, I mean, and that's where it's like, how you can't really know for sure because you don't know what's going on in their minds and all of this sort of stuff. But like, if that's not what was going on, how would things be any different? You know what I mean? It seems to me like her opinions are being determined by what's going on online, right? Well, guess what? Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's just like one Republican senator from a small district in Georgia. Like, she shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter, right? But it seems to me like Donald Trump does that now too. Like, I'm concerned that Donald Trump is going to come out and make a comment in support of this guy too. Like, I wonder if even Donald Trump could get the Republican nomination, taking a position in favor of this leaker. But I'm seeing Republicans do it. It's just so dumb. And that could have significant implications on the political future of the country and thus the economic future of our country. So that's why we had to talk about it. You guys are not mentioning as much as I thought, because I thought a lot of you would have something to say about that guy. I'm sorry this is happening. Well, I just don't want Biden to be president anymore, okay? That's... Well, you notice, like, I've disconnected from the politics a little bit. Maybe I should start, you know, a YouTube Shorts channel talking about the politics a little bit more. That's why it's hard for me to be a Republican. Yeah, I feel like that the Republican Party, like their official party platform, represents my views fairly well. But at the current time, I find it very difficult to be a Republican because I feel like there are too many stupid people on my team. And I just feel like that whatever kind of success and strides that we make just gets undermined by stupid people. Yeah, I've disconnected. I am not as engaged in the politics as I used to be because I don't like what a lot of the Republicans are doing. Like, it just as an example, okay? So like, a lot of the stuff going on with this how do I want to describe this issue? Okay, the one in particular that I want to focus on is transgender male to female, was born male, transitions to female, and then wants to participate in female sports. I don't think that should be allowed. It's unfair to women that are competing in those sports. And it's become like a serious issue in the country, right? Like, did you guys see these videos of this girl that she stood up and said something when there was a transgender on her team swimming that became the champion or whatever and got a lot of media attention, and she said, I'm not okay with this. I don't like, I'm not okay with him being in the locker room and stuff like that. And she was at a university, and like these activists came in and shouted her down, and they had to barricade themselves in a room and everything. And the protesters were saying that we're only gonna let you out if you pay a ransom. Like, Riley Gaines, holy crap. Like that's a crazy thing. Okay, so I'm totally with the Republicans on that, right? But what bothers me is that's the primary issue, right? Like, if you want to have a meaningful positive impact on people's lives here in America, because guess what, a lot of this stuff is being pushed by the Biden administration. You get a different president in there, it probably goes away. Because the transgender movement is already kind of collapsing in on itself, right? You want to have like a real impact? Fix Obamacare. Good grief. How is it we got into this point where Republicans had a majority, they couldn't reverse Obamacare, and they didn't really have a solid enough plan about what they wanted to do that they could just come in and say, we're going to repeal Obamacare and put this thing in place? They didn't do that, right? And medical costs are killing American productivity more than almost anything else. Okay, like you talk about, like, a lot of young people don't feel like it's worth trying and this sort of a thing because they don't get paid enough, and that's not what it is. It's that your medical costs are so freaking high, right? I literally, just myself, and I guess maybe part of the reason why I feel like this is because it hurts me in particular. I pay almost $1,000 a month for my medical insurance, and then I have a medication that I have to pay that's $1,000 a month. And then when I try and get that medication, even though I've set up all my finances so that I can do that, can you imagine? There's like tens of thousands of dollars a year that I could be investing into the stock market and be fat fire by now if I didn't have these health conditions, probably. And can you imagine what it's like for these people that can't do that, right? And I have to jump through all of these hoops, even when I've done all of that, when I've got the finances and everything, I have to jump through all these hoops with my insurance to get to do it. And then it's been like this for like 10, 20 years, and Congress can't seem to do anything about it. Like the Republicans can't even be bothered to actually put together like a real bill. Like they might say, yeah, well, we have like some general, but nobody's written a bill, man. Come on. Why we spend all of our time thinking about cultural issues that I honestly think will just sputter out and resolve themselves. And then when you don't have that issue anymore, what are you going to do? Clearly, Biden is not the one making the decisions. We need to get to whoever is making the calls. Kind of yes and no. So I think that the reality is that Biden has always kind of been this left-winger sort of thing, and this is exactly what I would have expected him to do. But you're right that he's very much like not really the one making the important decisions in his administration. Nobody cared about them 10 years ago, and they find studies about them in academics. Well, I'm not sure that's what made it into an issue, though. I really think that the internet did it on its own. So I'm trying to think of like the best way to describe these things that I see. Did you place a trade prior? Yes. No, it was after retail sales. I waited for the pullback on the retail sales. They need one of those retractable leashes they have for kids for Biden for safety. Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, is that the internet is something new. And so we don't really know a whole lot about the societal issues that come from it and how to deal with those. And the one that I find the most alarming has to do with kids. Like what should be the correct policies in regards to kids? What kind of activities do you allow them to participate in online or not? Because look, teenagers, you're going through a volatile time in your life and are prone to certain kinds of like psychological problems, emotional problems, this sort of a thing, right? And it seems to me like what you're doing by giving them free reign on the internet is they all group up and then they just, they turn their problems into a movement, right? And that's what Tumblr was, man. That's what Tumblr was. And when Tumblr would come in, basically Tumblr became a magnet for like the biggest emotional problems to get together and commiserate. And so in the beginning it was self-harm, and Tumblr rightly saw a problem with that and got rid of it, started banning it, and so then it became being gender non-conforming, and it formed on Tumblr and then spread to the rest of the internet, and that's 100% what caused it. That's where it came from. And like I said, I think it's gonna burn out on its own. But then the issue is, what's the next thing that's gonna come along? Okay, so that's not what I want to see. So right now, oh my gosh, come on. All right, fine. You're gonna squeeze me for everything. I was thinking like -5, but that came up so far, and the issue that I have now is like, because it's Friday and that news is out, and if that's all there was off of that news, there's probably not much of a reason for me to be in it. In other words, I think that the amount of downside that we could get from here is limited. And the flows was coming pretty strongly against me. I should have gotten out a little bit earlier, but it's okay. It's okay. Sucks, because I was in that for quite some time, wasn't I? I did get 15 favorable ticks on it. So I never quite got my order filled though, did I? Yeah, I should have waited patiently, because they squeezed me a bit, and I could have gotten out at -5. Are you? No, I keep forgetting to turn that one on, man. I haven't messed with it too much, Brett, because the bot that the strategy that I'm most interested in running, I really don't think that the back tests are accurate on. Doesn't seem to behave the same on live data that it does on the tick replay data. That's just what it is. And testing it on my cached data should supposedly help, but I just haven't taken it that far. And when I was back testing them, kind of suggested that there was a missing component, and I'm still trying to learn that missing component. I should be there by now. I really should, but I've been finding it hard to focus lately. Best option for your health is to try and find a way to find the root cause and try to heal it naturally. The drugs are okay for now, but the goal is not to heal. Well, I mean, that would be very lovely if you always knew what the root cause was. Right. The condition that I have, we really have no clue what causes it. I meant put Biden on a leash, but yes, children are not prepared emotionally or intellectually to integrate all of the information available at once, since it is so conflicting. Yes. And again, remember, your brain is a neural network, and it goes through different stages of development for that neural network to develop helpfully. And it seems to me like we're disrupting that natural development when we put kids online. So okay, so can I go into the other thing that I wanted to talk about today? I'm trying to keep it into I made a decision a while ago that, like, I don't want to tangent too much, which is to say I don't want to go, I mean, if you guys bring things up, then we can talk about stuff, but sometimes there are things that I wanted to talk about that weren't as relevant to the market. These things I'm talking about because I do think that they're relevant to us and could be relevant to our trading in the future, right? This one has more to do with principles, right? What are the main values that we hold, that we focus on, that will be most beneficial to our trading, right? And the ones that I believe in, and I got this from the bank that I worked at, but I think that there's substantial evidence to suggest that these values are the most important contributors to your success, are integrity, excellence, and teamwork. Okay. Whenever I talk about excellence on TikTok, I get the most bizarre comments from young people. It like super triggers them. So this teacher on TikTok made a really, really good post. She said, somebody asked, like, yeah, but it seems like that these kids are unmotivated, right? And she said, well, like, so what happens, what I see happen is, like an assignment is due at a certain time, but makeup work is allowed. So if you don't turn it in at this time, you can still turn it in late, right? And so if she has a class of 30 kids, what happens is maybe 10 of them actually turn it in on time, and then the other 20 don't, essentially, right? And when those other 20 that don't, that there's no punishment for it whatsoever, and there's no advantage to the people that turned it in on time, how long before those first 10 stop turning it in on time? And of course, it doesn't take very long before everybody just turns it in late, right? Because there's no reason to do it well, right? And what the narrative that's constantly being pushed on the kids is that it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're not going to get rewarded for it in the end, so you might as well give up. Man, that just squeezed the fuck out of me, and it's going to come right back down, isn't it? Well, that's unfortunate, because I'd be up 5 again here. It's a Friday, though. I don't think I should mess with it more. Anyways, so, like, why try your hardest at school if you do that and you go through college and you still can't afford a house, for instance, right? So she was saying, it totally makes sense that they're not motivated, right? It was a good post, right? So I said, excellence is its own reward, right? That is the way out of this problem, right? If those are my kids, I tell them, you're turning it in on time because that's the excellent thing to do, right? And I will hold their feet to the fire. They're going to do it because their parent will be pissed, right? And I provide the motivation. So I said excellence is its own reward, and I got all of these weird comments from it. Like, one person said, this is the dumbest thing I've read, blah, 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 blah. There's this other person that was like, that doesn't make sense. And so I tried to explain it further. I said, well, excellence is its own reward, because if you do excellent work, you gain the ability to do excellent work, right? This thing, like, it's so funny to me, frankly, that there are so many people out there that think that they're just going to turn it on when they care. It's like, okay, you don't care about school, you don't care about life now, but in 15 years, when something comes along that you do care about, and then you do want to be able to put in the effort, guess what? You're going to fall flat on your face because you've never tried it anything in your life. Meanwhile, the people that put their best effort through on everything that they do are just going to absolutely smoke you, right? You can't, this is not something that you just turn on or off. Being able to do excellent, what does excellent mean? Excellent means quality that is noteworthy, okay? You don't get that kind of quality without practice and without constantly doing things, constantly working towards being excellent. Like, I am making a table right now. We found a slab, we leveled it out, we took a lot of wood off of the top of it, we squared it off, we put metal beams in it so that it doesn't bend, we did a really nice finish on it, okay? And that whole process took months. Like, you would not think that just for a piece of table, a square piece of wood, that you could put so much effort into making just a slab look nice, but you can. And my uncle that I'm working with on it, he does all of he knows all of the tiny little details that matter as to the quality of the thing. Like when you're sanding, it's like you got to sand the right way, because if you focus on one spot too much, then you kind of get this wave, and then if you put your hand over it, you'll feel the bumps, right? Or you can get little scratches that you might not notice immediately, but if you really look at it, you'll see the scratches from the sandpaper. You don't want those, right? That is excellence, man. I think that we've done a pretty, I mean, it was our first time doing something like that, but I think so far we've done an excellent job on that table. That's excellence, right? Yeah. It required a lot of patience and practice going through and putting that much care into everything that you do. And you're not going to be able to duplicate that kind of quality unless you're constantly thinking about it, right? But these kids, they're like, so the reward for doing the work is more work? Man. And I feel like if that's your take, you need to do something greater with your life. Okay, that is the attitude of somebody that has like never had to do a lick of real work in their lives and is like only 14. Okay, because what do you think that life is actually about? It seems like we taught children that life is about watching anime and getting accolades on the internet, right? If you put kids online and they have social media and they can post pictures and then you get likes and you get all this dopamine from the phone, that's just going to outweigh anything else that you have. And so what is your neural network being optimized to do? Your neural network is being optimized to be a narcissist and gain the most accolades from people on the internet. Which by the way probably means not really being genuine about yourself and only presenting your best side and caring mostly about yourself. Right? Turn the internet off. Turn the TV off. Don't spend any time on TikTok or Instagram or any of that stuff, right? And then what are you going to do? Right? Most of these kids would be bored out of their minds if they had to go a whole year under that situation. And what would you do? What would you do? You would find work to do. You would find another hobby that probably involves work. Like, look, I play a lot, probably too much. Lately I've been watching way too much anime with the family, but it's okay. It's about the family, right? When I have like the free time, what are the things that I like to do? I'm making the desk. That's work. Making YouTube videos. That's work. Making songs, that's work. You might enjoy it, but it's work. Like it takes real skill. You're constantly learning things to get better at it. It's work, right? The work you do today will determine the kind of work that you will have the opportunity to do in the future. And if you in high school do shoddy work, then the opportunities that you're going to have available to you in the future are going to be boring, menial tasks. And if you do excellent work, you're going to have the opportunity to do interesting, meaningful things. Always do your best work. Always strive for excellence. The whole thing with excellence is to do the thing excellently, even if there's no immediate reward, because eventually it is going to matter, and then you're going to be able to do it excellently. Make a video about how sex. What are you talking about? I don't think that would be a video. I mean, I could talk about their cool algorithms, but it wouldn't even, that's probably not even what they're like now. So it's probably even more advanced than when I was in there. That was a long time ago. How would I make a video about it? I can't show it to you. You can trade an instrument if you understand its cycles. Well, their cycles are a thing on instruments, that is true, but they shift, so it kind of ends up being a sweetener. Man, I'm really frustrated that came up so hard. And I had to puke. I mean, I really didn't want to puke at 20, so... But, like, look, it's come back. I got down at minus 13, and I'd be at plus 5 again right now. Volatile market. I knew that it was a little bit dangerous to be doing this on... in the amount of market volatility that we had, and it being a Friday. And to just lose 3, and I made 3 yesterday, so to just be minus 10, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, cycles can be a sweetener, but if it's the entire basis of your edge, you're not going to do very well. And I have not seen any really good solid information out there about cycles in the retail trading community. But there's Euler in particular has a couple of indicators based on cycles, and I did a forward walk with one of them that did pretty okay. It was definitely, in terms of like a strategy based on a single indicator, that was probably the second best that I've had. The best that I've had being R squared. I should talk about that one more often because, you know, it's like what Uzi was talking about a couple of days earlier in the week, right? Where he's like, you know, people, they want to be like, you made the millions of dollars and here's the strategy, exactly what you got to do. And so, well, R squared is the best thing that I can give you that's like that. The R squared one is the indicator that tells you how much autocorrelation there is in a series, right? Oh man, by the way, the S&P 500, as I've kind of been not paying attention, the S&P really turned back down, didn't it? This move that we had after the I'm still thinking back on it. I did sit there and think, well, I could try and hold back through this and it'll probably come back up. But the thing that I was concerned about was like, yeah, but I'm probably not going to get 3.51 fills. And they could move lower, and the risk is way more than the reward now at this point. So I really better just puke before it gets too much worse. But I could have waited only a few more seconds. I would have only had to have waited a few more seconds. 489. Yeah, it would have only been a few more seconds and I could have failed. No, that's a Ninja Trader indicator. It's called R squared. Just add it to like the S&P 500. Sorry, answering a question here in Discord. It's measuring autocorrelation. So it's measuring how correlated the data series is to itself, right? How much was the last whatever the period that you set. So if it's like 10 minutes, how much did the last 10 minutes predict the current bar, right? So if you've got a line, if you have a stock, like so if you have a stock that's going like this, okay, and then it goes like this for a really long time, okay, and this is like the whole day's worth of action, right? Then what you would get over here on R square is it would slowly come out to be over 80%, and then it would stay there for a while, and then once it starts coming down, the autocorrelation would revert, right? And then as you started to get autocorrelation this way, then it would come back up again. and be a high autocorrelation, right? So when the correlation level is high, there are certain kinds of trades that you can take that work better, essentially. So you use this as a filter. Works really well. Especially when we're like in a zany bull market sort of a thing. It's kind of funny because this is, I mean, this is what retail traders do is they say, oh, look, well, like we've been in a long uptrend. Now we're getting a little bit of a pullback. So now would be a really good place to go. Like that's what they do, right? They don't come and say every time that it pulls back a little bit, then I get in, right? They're way more likely to take it if it seems like the data series is autocorrelated, right? So here's that we've just found a way to quantify it, right? What drives autocorrelations? Well, so when you have something that is strongly autocorrelated, the best evidence that we have suggests that large meta orders are a primary cause of this. That somebody is slowly but very consistently executing an order in the market. So when you have a cumulative delta data series that is strongly autocorrelated, that's what I view as a strong indication of a meta order presence in the market. How much time do we got left? 30 minutes? I have to say, this hasn't been the best week. Shall we come back and look at our trades a little bit? It's been rough. Oh yeah, man, it's been a terrible week. I have to add a filter here so that we can see just the live trades. Filter editor. Count begins with the 7. Okay. Okay, so in the end, it was a minus 18 week. So that one trade actually was kind of the, I guess it wasn't as bad as I thought. You're doing great. I feel like there was so much more opportunity, but like, here's the thing is like, look at the MFEs and stuff like that. Like some of these really, like this one right here that I made 21 on, but it went 37 against me at one point. This one, even this one, even if I had held into it, I would be taking out 5, but I had 20 against me at one point. It's not the best. Hasn't been the best. So, it hasn't been the best market for me. And that's going to be largely a function of like understanding that market, right? What are the flows actually in here driving things, and how ahead of the curve are you on knowing that those flows are coming? That hasn't been us this lately, right? But you know what? If you come back to like the treasuries on like a daily basis, right? We're talking about this thing. You know, it's kind of been like, okay, well, there was that banking crisis thing, but then like it's okay, and like the Federal Reserve is going to hold off on further rate increases. That would make sense for the treasuries to go sideways a bit, right? And we know that is the type of market that Seth doesn't do as well in. So we might need to wait a little bit, but we're probably coming into a market where we need to start thinking about more mean reversion situations, right? Where instead of looking for a large meta order that hasn't hit the market yet, we need to look for the order has exhausted itself and it's going to revert. It's tough. There is a little bit of a hint that they could move lower, but if it happens, I'm not Didn't feel too bad. So a spike like that is just not, oh, it sucks. Somebody was probably taking profits after that, right? Who do you know who makes good returns trading treasuries that are not professional traders for institutions? Well, so I've seen people at times that have done well and that have shown me results. Just about anybody. I don't look up to other retail traders, no. This comes back to I think a fundamental misunderstanding on the part of most people that get into trading about the nature of the thing that we're doing, because especially in futures, what you're doing is you're just trying to play in this game where these monster players are involved, right? And just kind of pick up their scraps, right? So nobody in retail trading is a titan, right? And there were some situations in the past where people had great returns and did amazing things, but those are becoming less and less common as so much of the, you know, the statistics and so forth have been arbitraged out of the markets with computers, right? So the reality is that all of us are lower than dirt in the hierarchy of the markets, right? The reality of the markets is not fully represented through the market orders and limit orders. Depends on what you mean by the market and what you mean by fully represented. But you're right that the market does not represent all available information. That's the way that I would put it, right? Current market price does not reflect all available information. Well, now I would maybe get filled. How long would I have been in that position for, though? Jeez. 41 minutes. Plus, I had already been in that trade for an hour? Boy. That's real shitty, dude. This is going to be funny if this just, like, absolutely plummets after we're gone. That'll piss me off for sure. It happens sometimes. This is the issue, right? Is like, I want to be in a trade where, you know, there's a large meta order going a certain way and it's going to keep pushing it, right? And if they can shove it all the way back up there and create a stop run like that, that's not the trade that I really want to be in. So in the end, it wasn't a great trade, right? I shouldn't have lost as much as I did on it, but in the end, it wasn't a good trade. There's no schedule, James. There's like the reason that happened was because of the backwash from the consumer expectations, right? Yeah, so you had one, you know, you sound suspiciously like some bullshit I'm familiar with, to be honest with you, and I don't like it. So when people start coming in and they're like, well, I predicted it this one time, so fucking what? You must not watch this stream very often. So you're new, I'll give you a pass this time, but really? Like, hey, if you can show me 5 years worth of data, this behavior of this thing, but it better be like every time that it hits your little number, it turns, because that's what you're trying to say. Look how accurate it is. Bullshit. The market's not, an edge like that they don't happen anymore. Market's too efficient for that. It's okay, Seth. It's okay. We're okay. I lost $10. Whoop-de-doo. We need to be ready for the spots. ICT talks about the macros. Vinny likes to talk about cycles. That's why I'm already kind of like, this smells like bullshit. And he tends to be the one that would be like, every time that it works, see, look, oh my gosh. It totally works. It's a schedule. You just have to know when they're going to turn it by having my little indicator on the chart. I'm also wondering here though, because we have come down a little bit. I would have gotten filled on the $10 at least. Can it actually continue lower here? So it has kind of died out. From what I know about the way that Fridays go, it probably meanders between this distribution now for the rest of the session. It's like it's not a lot of stress to be in the market now for very little of gain. So I'm just frustrated because these sorts of things have been happening a lot lately, right? It's very frustrating. No, he's not talking about seasonality. He's talking about like, he's talking more about the fractal sort of. So like if we have a trend and it goes up and then it comes back and then it goes up, right? But probably doesn't actually look like that. It probably looks like this. Squiggly line up, squiggly line down, squiggly line up. And so the theory behind it, right, is if you know how wide of this range is, you can draw these little trend lines and then, have a regular cycle sort of a thing. And say, okay, it's pulled back this much and it's at the time in the cycle, and so I want to buy it here, right? So that's what I was saying. There's an indicator by Euler that kind of does something like that. It gives you one of these sorts of things, and it says this is, this is my best kind of like approximation of where we are in that kind of short-term cycle.